Welcome everybody to another episode of the Nerd Continuity, where we talk about design, development, and all the other crazy stuff we find online. I'm your host, Alex, and with me, as usual, my co-host, Chris Perko. Hello, Chris.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm super tired. I'm falling asleep because last night I woke up at 4 a.m. because a mouse was climbing on a curtain.
Oh.
Like, since when mice climb? Like, what is this mutant shit that is going on in my house? So
And did it wake you up, or did your wife wake up screaming and you had to
no,
deal
I heard him. He was like scratching and like my wife has a pretty she's a heavy sleeper. Like she doesn't wake up. So I'm a really light sleeper. So I heard that real weird noise and I woke up. I turned on the light and it was this little kind of cute but terrifying little shit attached on my curtain. And my wife woke up for the light and looked at it and just started screaming. And my dog freaked out because he couldn't see the mouse. He never sees mice. I don't know why. He was looking at us, wondering why we were jumping on our bed. And yeah, that's it. So I started putting some mouse traps around the house and we didn't go back to bed. We stayed on the couch for the next 3-4 hours.
Oh man.
So yes, I'm yawning a lot, and I'm sorry if I'm gonna just disappear throughout this episode. Like at one point you're gonna talk about yourself. Yeah, go for it. How you doing?
Pretty good. I've been busy on a few things that I'm looking forward to share probably in the next episode.
Nice.
I don't know if I mentioned last episode, but the watch on my Fitbit completely died a few weeks ago.
What?
And I just got a replacement. Fitbit support was awesome. They sent me a new one, pretty much no questions asked. They just send in your old one, we'll send you right back a new one. So trying to finish up the second watch face I'm working on, and I've also got some user requested features for the first one. So
nice.
Doing a little work on that. And also today I did a little work on the AWPS command line interface.
Oh yes, I saw the pull request. I'm gonna review it later. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so with this new request, as soon as the theme is done building, it'll go ahead and install Composer. It'll run NPM install and also do the NPM build, so that as soon as it's done, you can activate it on the admin panel and your theme is already running. You don't have to do anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was always getting those issue reports
like,
hey, the mix file, the mix manifest is not there. The SVG, like all the methods related to the Composer helper class that gets loaded through Composer. Oh, this is not working. Yeah. I was always the same answer. Yeah, run Composer install, NPM install, and you're good to go. No, thanks so much. I was I always thought about doing it, but I was super lazy and I had other 10 million things to deal with. So yeah, I'm gonna test it and merge it and create a new release of the CLI.
Sure. Beautiful. Let me know if it works. I did a little testing on my end and it seemed to work fine.
Okay.
The output looked a little weird for NPM, I guess because you're running it through PHP.
Yeah.
But it seems to work. So.
Yeah, I wanna see if I can implement some cute emojis or stuff like that. I don't know, the Ghost CLI, or it's really good in that. But I think it's an issue with PHP because also the WP CLI doesn't have any real output, like good NPM output whenever you install stuff. It's really static in the way PHP is. So yeah, we'll see. Awesome. Another little update for the last week for me. I opened the Akira Patreon and I released an update on the campaign that it's titled "What If the Campaign Fails?" Because we are 6 days away from the end of the campaign and we're just $20,000. I mean, just between double quotes, because
that's still incredible.
It's amazing. We have almost 600 people that pledged to the project, and we raised more than $20,000 for an open source project, which doesn't exist. How hard it is to convince people to give you money on something that doesn't really, that you cannot really actually use it. It's mind blowing. But so we had this plan B since day one. If we don't reach the goal, we're gonna keep working on Akira part-time whenever we can, but we're gonna try to fund it through Patreon, or a lot of people suggested to open LiberPay, which I'm gonna see what's this fuss about. So we're gonna try to raise some funds. Mostly the main goal is just for me to pay the other 3 developers full time. I don't care about myself. I will keep working full time and working on Akira whenever I don't sleep because a mouse wakes me up. So yeah, I gotta do that.
Right.
But yeah, no, we got a pretty positive response, and I'm pretty happy about the outcome and about like how many users are actually excited about Akira, it's a great little thing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's amazing you were able to get 20,000 funded. That's uh, definitely a good sign that people want this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that you'll have no problem getting the Patreon funded and be able to start, really putting a lot of development effort into the project.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I'm super excited. I can't wait to release the first version. The canvas is almost done. The interface is coming along. I have to finish the header bar, which is kind of like the most complicated things, because it's where all the basic tools, the tools that you're gonna be using most of the times are there, and I want to make it right. I don't want to leave the users like lost the first time that they open the application, that they have to scroll through thousands of menus and not recognize the icons and don't know what to click to do something. So I want to make it right from the start. And another thing that I've been doing for the past week, and it's tied to our main topic, it's creating an award block for WordPress with Gutenberg, with the block editor. So I don't know if you followed my series, like the premium theme development for WordPress.
The sunset theme.
Yeah, the sunset theme, exactly.
Yeah.
At the beginning, in order to download the Photoshop file, the design file, I had this little Gleam widget that is like gleam.com or gleam.io, whatever. It's a company that offers these sort of like make some actions in order to get a reward, and it's usually just download these but pay with a tweet or pay with a subscription, pay with a follow, like all these like social media actions in order to get a file in exchange. And at the beginning, it was really great because if you didn't want to actually make a proper marketing campaign or something really expensive, it was completely free. In fact, in order to download that PSD file, I was just asking to subscribe to YouTube, to follow on Twitter, and tweet, just do a retweet, and that's it. But then I guess they didn't make any money. So now it's stupid expensive. Like it's $100 a month for a very limited amount of users. So if you have your campaign and it runs for a month and you pass 1,000 users that they clicked on those links, that's it. You cannot use the same campaign anymore. You have to create another one, which is really stupid.
Yeah.
And then I started searching a lot of plugins or alternatives. Everything gets super expensive and it's just not good. And how hard is really to make something like that? So I decided to use it as a little experiment to create a sort of like complicated block for Gutenberg. And we'll talk about my experience later.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking terrible.
The joys of Gutenberg.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the news.
Sure.
Have you ever heard about ClassicPress?
Yeah, I haven't really kept a close eye on it, but I do remember them talking about it quite a bit when last year the whole Gutenberg thing started, and it was like, hey, what? WordPress is an open source project, so let's just fork it and let's have it without Gutenberg and make it more modern in some way. I'm not sure exactly what they've done other than just not having Gutenberg. But yeah, so they're version 1 of their release candidates available now, huh?
Yeah, I was looking at their documentation and what their approach to this whole thing is. Basically, for now, for version 1 is just literally WordPress 4.9, basically.
Okay.
The regular WordPress without Gutenberg. They said that they are removing a bit of bloat. And by that, it's pretty hilarious because they said, we removed the default Hello Dolly and Akismet plugins.
Yeah.
Is that bloat? Okay. It's funny. But yeah, no, it's an interesting project. And the fact is that they have really good plans for version 2, which will happen next year, like later next year, which will involve a lot of rewriting of PHP in order to modernize it and make it compatible with version 7.2 and 7.3. So for now, yeah, version 1 is gonna basically build, like maintain a regular classic version of WordPress without Gutenberg and stripping away all the JavaScript extra React things. But for next versions, they have pretty interesting plans. I'm curious to see how long they can keep implementing new releases from WordPress inside ClassicPress without breaking things, and how it's gonna, like, when it's gonna completely go on a different direction. It's gonna be sort of like a standalone project.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it'll work out because, there's a lot of people that use WordPress that are not really developers.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna be like, oh, WordPress, yeah, sure, grab it. I don't care about Gutenberg, that's fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have developers that are, very critical of Gutenberg. And no, I think from a development standpoint, not a lot of people are pro Gutenberg. I think most of the developers I see online are very against it because of a lot of the reasons we'll discuss later.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see, like, who's going to be going to ClassicPress, who's going to be sticking with actual WordPress from Automatic. Just to kind of see what'll happen. Hopefully it won't die. I'd like to see it flourish and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't think of any fork or spin of WordPress that has been as popular as ClassicPress. There are a few out there, especially there are a few that heavily edited and tweaked the administration area to make it look less open, I would say less customizable, but more like focused, like user oriented. But yeah, it's I'm curious to see where it goes. Definitely, it's good. Like, it's the basic of open source. I'm sorry for them because, like, managing the core components and the code base of WordPress, it's a bit of a mess.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, I was looking into the WP includes the other day to check the default blocks and all the other things that they did in PHP in order to implement Gutenberg. Oh, it's just not good, not maintainable. Wow.
Yeah, that code base just needs a complete rework, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna happen. Like, it will never happen. Well,
no, they want to keep the backwards compatibility and everything, so
not really. We'll talk about this later, but it doesn't seem like they want that to do anymore.
But not for Gutenberg. I mean, like, the general WordPress development, like the PHP stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, next news. Facebook. Do you know that Facebook is still terrible, right?
What? No way.
Yeah, so a garbage company still does garbage things, apparently. This news is really interesting, and unfortunately, I was able to read the news when this article was publicly available from the Wall Street Journal. Now it's behind the paywall, which is really upsetting because it was a really great article. If I can find something open, something free, I will put it in the description or the notes of the show. But basically, what a lot of users found out is that if you're using an app, especially on Android, that is less secure than iOS devices, on Android, if you're using a medical app and you're storing your health information, like, for example, a lot of women were storing their cycle and when to take specific pills, or if you have some health issues and reminders, stuff like that. If you access Facebook, even from the web, from like your Chrome or another browser in your phone, Facebook was able to piggyback and use backdoors to download these data from these apps and store them inside their database, even if you don't have a Facebook account.
Yeah.
That's
in a way, I'm not surprised with like what they were doing with those apps they were getting kids to download, and iOS was like locking them out of these like special like developer programs that they were able to put on these devices.
The developer certificates.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm not really surprised that they're running all this stuff in the background secretly. I don't know how they haven't been like just taken down. I've worked in the healthcare industry before, and they're so strict about data. I worked for a company that they did a lot of STD and HIV testing, and we had contracts with the military. And I don't know how many times I'd walk into work and the Air Force would be there. Like, didn't tell you they're coming. They're just there to audit things. So the amount of laws that, especially in this country, and I'm sure most countries are like this, where they have a lot of laws about the security of personal information when it comes to, especially when it comes to medical records.
Hmm.
So I don't know how the FBI isn't just like raiding Facebook headquarters or something. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do kind of like what Pirate Bay did, and like
Oh
declare their
yeah.
own country out in the middle of the ocean and
Yeah, I think
do
they could
whatever they want.
probably do it.
They have the money, so
They have the money to buy a little island and make it their own country, definitely.
yeah.
What's interesting is that uh, somewhat would think like, what's the point of actually stealing this data if you don't actually have a user signed on Facebook? Why you need this data if you
Mhm.
cannot pair it with a user account that you already have? And all these things are happening, and I'm starting to think, actually I was listening to another podcast that they suggested that they're actually working with someone in order to gather this data, and the only company or the only group of people interested in this type of data are insurance companies.
Mhm.
And that's pretty scary. That's pretty fucked up, because if you think about it, like your like insurance companies, they already have the monopoly, especially in
Mhm.
the US, right? They own everything, and if you don't have insurance, you're basically no one, and you could die in a street, whatever. They don't care.
Sure.
What if these insurance companies can know before you tell them what are your pre-existing conditions, or if you have some
Mhm.
health issues or something, what they can rank you
Yeah.
before even you having the necessity of asking, or like buying a plan or whatever. And
Yeah.
it
Because that's going to determine the cost of the insurance, what it
exactly.
covers. Um, yeah, it's true. And I mean, it's the whole idea of Facebook is the whole idea of just big data. An individual person, it's worthless. You've got millions of these data points. It's
Yeah,
now worth a lot of money.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, but
So
it's an interesting question that made me laugh, but it's true. Like, how is this Facebook still up? How is
yeah,
possible that I think it's got too big to control, and it's gotten too big to even regulate it.
yeah,
It's impossible. How do you handle that amount of data every day? How do you vouch for that? And especially, how do you, like, all these shitty things that are happening? I guess 99% are on purpose, but there's still the 1% that it's
hmm
because of bugs or bad things written in the codes or something that
sure.
they missed. And for the size of Facebook, 1% is still a lot.
Oh yeah, and I'm really surprised there's not many developers like coming forward and whistleblowing on stuff that they're doing, because I'm sure they're doing a lot of shady stuff that we
Oh
don't even
yeah.
know about.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
based, like, there was I don't remember the name, but there was a company from the UK that is actually auditing Facebook in Europe, because they can do it. They have better laws there for like
mhm.
privacy and GDPR, all this kind of stuff,
Right.
and they're auditing Facebook based on the leaked documents that happened like a year ago. And in those leaked documents, there's proof of Facebook executives talking with developers or other managers, knowing that they're gonna do these things on purpose. Like, actually asking, hey, we need to use this backport to get the user information from this other app. We need to download the contact list from Android because it's not protected. We need to do this and do that. So
hmm
everyone knows how crappy is this thing. And so it's basically, I'm counting the days until I delete my Facebook page and my Facebook account. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of silly, stupid, because yeah, I will delete Facebook, but I'm on WhatsApp because my
Mhm.
family is on WhatsApp, and
Sure.
I'm on Instagram, so I have to delete also Instagram.
hmm
And I use an Android phone, so it doesn't matter what I do, Facebook can access my information. So what's even the point of deleting your
Yeah.
Facebook account?
Yeah. That's very true.
Fucking terrible. Well, whatever. Let's move on to something more interesting, I hope.
Yes.
Let's talk about NPM, the Node Package Manager. Did you know that they had an enterprise level of products?
Yeah, I had heard about it a while back, and I never really kind of followed up on it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pretty cool concept, especially when you're working in a large company where, like right now, I'm working on one large application, but there are pieces of it that are really their own components, and it'd be nice to be able to package them up as their own package.
Mm-hmm.
And if we start a new project later on down the road, we can just pull it in just like a regular NPM package. But this package may be something that we don't want that to be publicly available. It may contain more intellectual property that's important to our company that we cannot share. There's other things that we are trying to like open source, but so it's kind of nice to have the ability to push packages of your code out to other teams or to other projects within your own team using NPM, but not have it open to the world.
Yeah, that's true. And I was aware of these tier that was like out there, but it wasn't publicly available. It wasn't publicly selectable from their website. And then 2 days ago, I got an email from NPM and say, hey, we made Enterprise more open and more accessible. So whenever you need, you can just click on a button, contact, and give us some information of the size of your company, and we're going to make a plan for you. I remember that there's something like that justifies the necessity of having an enterprise account happened, if I remember properly, 4 years ago, where a lot of companies were using the same NPM package, and the developer, which was open source, the developer decided one day, I'm not going to maintain it anymore, and actually deleted the NPM repository. And I don't know, like 35% of the web went down because everyone was using this package.
Yeah, that's why we actually our Git repo is massive, because we actually check in all of our NPM packages. Our node modules are checked in, just in case that happens. It sucks to put all that stuff into GitHub, or to not GitHub, but Bitbucket. But it's, if one of these packages goes away, we're going to be screwed.
Yes, indeed. And also it's interesting that they offer some automatic like security check and health check of your source code. Something that I noticed in NPM, if you update it to the latest version, it's really nice when you do NPM install or NPM update. It gives you the vulnerabilities, like low, high, medium vulnerabilities, and automatically checking or like fixing those things for you. And these NPM Enterprise package will do that automatically for you, which is pretty great, especially if you're working on massive applications. You don't want your developers spending too much time on maintaining packages if you don't have the resources or stuff like that. So it's really interesting. Nothing more to say, but good for NPM. We'll see when Microsoft is going to buy NPM as well.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what the pricing is, because like you said, you have to contact them for a price. So,
$1 million.
Yes.
for 4 team members. That's it.
So news from Microsoft. They're wanting to go into a deal with the U.S. military to use HoloLens, which is their like augmented reality headset, to work with the military to make them more lethal, is what I believe the words were. So there's a protest amongst developers within Microsoft, specifically the HoloLens department, saying like, hey, we didn't sign up for this. We don't want to make weapons, basically. Which I completely get. When you're doing something with the military, you don't really know what the use is. In a way, you could look at this and say like, well, maybe this is going to keep our soldiers safer. Maybe it's going to allow them to avoid hitting civilians. But at the same time, it is going to the military. So, do you feel comfortable developing something that is going to be used in a lethal situation? So there's kind of an internal like a sheet going around inside Microsoft where developers are signing off saying like, I don't want to be part of this, and they're pushing for them to exit that deal.
It's interesting how all these big companies, I guess it like everyone does it, but these big companies are working more and more with the military and developing technologies for the military. Google did it, and Amazon with the facial recognition as a deal with the military. And also the developers at Amazon said, this technology is not ready. We're not comfortable in giving it to the military because it's technology. So first, you don't know how they're going to use it. And second, if there's a bug in your HoloLens and you render wrongly a couch in your apartment, is different than rendering wrongly or pointing wrongly. Like, oh, this is an enemy, or it's a civilian, or it's a sheep, or a cornfield. So it's, oh my God. I don't know. It's a really weird thing is a really weird field. I really don't feel comfortable. Like my whole question is that why in 2019 we still have to go to war and we still have fucking stupid people killing each other, which whatever. But yeah, like improving the technologies can improve the safety and can improve also the speed and the accuracy of this thing. But yeah, like, do you think like the workers have a say in something? Like a massive company like Microsoft can really say, okay, yes, 100 or 200 people are not happy. Okay, let's fire them. Let's hire other 200 people that are happy with the military.
I don't know how that would work. I mean, one of the developers was saying that, this kind of goes against Microsoft's vision of, especially like Bill Gates of going out and helping the world. And now we're building, helping build weapons basically. So I don't know. I imagine that if they just probably give an ultimatum, like you're either working on this project or you can leave. Because a company like Microsoft, there's people lined up out the door to work there.
That's true.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it would look bad if all of a sudden they had 200 developers just walk out being like, I'm not going to do this. And it would also look bad if they fired 200 developers. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Microsoft decides to do with this.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I guess we are out. Like we ran out of the interesting news for this week. So, Chris, we gotta talk about Gutenberg again.
We gotta talk about Gutenberg,
and especially the development aspect of Gutenberg. Did you have the pleasure of developing some custom blocks with Gutenberg?
So I played around with like the Create Guten block last year when it was, everything kept changing and I just gave up on it. I was like, I can't keep up with this. The documentation sucks. So this weekend, yesterday actually, I grabbed AWPS. I got a new instance up. I was like, all right, I've got a brand new theme. I'm gonna play with a block.
Yes,
where do I begin?
That's the reaction. Gotta play with a block.
And it's like the thing that I really wanted to look at is something that you were tweeting about the other day, which is updating a block that is already in use. So maybe you've built a plugin that adds blocks to another person's theme. Maybe you have a theme that has a custom block and you want to update it. And it just the problems with it is just incredible. I try to make a small change, like I'm gonna just add a little extra paragraph tag at the bottom of this block, and then you go into your post and you try to edit it, and it's like, oh, there's some differences here. Do you want to convert it to HTML or a block? And you're like, I don't know, try block, and then it just spits out all this crazy HTML.
It never works.
It's so broken. I don't know how whoever's in charge decided to ship 5.0 with Gutenberg, like at the state it's in right now. It's horrendous.
No, it's ridiculous. And you read the documentation on how to deal. Like they wrote the documentation like it's the smartest thing ever. Like if you have a block and then you decide to update the block and you wanna maintain like quote unquote backward compatibility with the previous version of the block, you need to literally wrap everything, like all your attributes and methods, all those parts that are changing around a deprecated object, and then you can create a new one. And that works. I would say works as a stretch of a word, but that works if you're dealing with one attribute and one paragraph and you said, this paragraph actually should be wrapped around p tags instead of span. That's okay. That could happen. But if you have a block that has like a custom columns or custom meta fields or whatever, and then you update it 2-3 times or you maintain it throughout the years, how massive that fucking JavaScript files will be. It's stupid.
It is, and
it is.
I don't understand why they made it the way they did. Like why they kind of went away from like the WordPress way completely. Like I understand they're wanting to embrace JavaScript. They chose the React way because React is the most popular framework, which I disagree. I hate React.
Me too. Same both.
It's mainly just the JSX. But why make it so that all of this just becomes like a string you stick in the database, and then you're populating it just through PHP just by pulling out that string and plopping it in there. Like if you're going to do that, why not just do it like a shortcode where you have just the attributes and the parameters that are being passed in. And then on the front end side, instead of doing this whole like edit and save code that gets stringified, just call a PHP function that does the rendering. And then you can upgrade it no problem.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So I started playing with these custom block that I was building, and first the first step, which is super messed up, the creation of the block. So when you create the block, you need to write the JavaScript file, and whenever you need to use something, for example, like an element or an attributes, the button or the media uploader or a simple paragraph, a simple like plain text or rich text attribute, you need to import it from JavaScript, from the wp.components or the wp.core. So you have all these JavaScript import packages that you need to include in your block.js in order to make it work. But if you forget to register your Gutenberg block by specifying an array of packages in PHP, you cannot access those packages in JavaScript. Does it make sense?
No.
What I'm saying? So do you know the WP enqueue script method, right? You can specify the title, you can specify the URL, the path of your file, and then you can specify an array of dependencies. So you usually the default array of dependencies jQuery. Like you need to enqueue a JavaScript file that needs jQuery, so don't load that JavaScript if you don't have jQuery.
Right.
It works exactly the same for Gutenberg, but instead of specifying an array of dependency, you specify an array of WordPress core Gutenberg dependencies. So if in your JavaScript file, you need to access the WP components, you need to, in your PHP file, enqueue script that Gutenberg file and specify an array of dependencies with WP components.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And they're written in two different ways. In JavaScript is wp.components because it's an object. In PHP is wp-components because it's a string passed through an array. And I couldn't figure out, like I was following the official documentation, which is a whole other thing, and it's all messed up. And it was like, okay, if you need to import a simple text area, you can import the text area from the WP blocks. And I did it, wrote JavaScript, compiled. I went on the front end or like the actual content edit page, and I was having this console log error. Like the WP block doesn't exist. Like, what? How? Why? I'm in the admin area. I'm using Gutenberg, and the WP block doesn't exist. Why? Because I didn't enqueue it and require it in PHP. Like,
it's so messed up, and I don't know. I really just don't understand the choices that they made with this. Even from the beginning, when this was like a new thing, so many people were complaining about it, but they didn't listen. They were just like, oh no, this is gonna be the greatest thing in the world. And like the whole reactivity, like it's only on the admin panel, so
it doesn't make sense. Like, what's the point of using React if you don't allow reactivity? I understand, like, yeah, you have server-side rendering in the front end, but so. Like why I'm writing a massive JavaScript file to not leverage any reactivity and any cool things that I could actually do in the front end.
Yeah. It's like if they really wanted to bring reactivity to WordPress, they should have just made the WordPress API a little bit more modern, update the documentation on it, and push for people to write more like a single page application type thing using WordPress as a backend. I think that would make more sense than this messed up way of doing content.
Or like, I understand that you don't want to print the entire content as a React component because you strip away the server-side rendering, so it impacts the SEO and all this kind of stuff. But at least start from day one with an option to allow reactive blocks in the front end as well. So the user has a choice. By default, the block is not going to be reactive in the front end. It's going to be just string. and printed with the content PHP, but you should have an option to allow, if you have some crazy stuff that you want to edit, and Gutenberg is like React, that's the whole purpose of React. Why implementing React if you don't allow user to use React in the front end? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking terrible. And I also spend so much time in trying to understand how they handle attributes, because they don't handle attributes the React way. They have custom attributes.
Yes, yeah, it's very strange looking.
Did you try to handle an array in Gutenberg?
No, I didn't try an array. I just tried more simple things than that, and I was having problems. So
Okay, good luck with that. I ended up completely ignoring the Gutenberg documentation and writing a React component. It's a pure React component that prints HTML. That's it, and it works. As soon as I try to implement the the Gutenberg way with the source type and the tag and the whatever, like built-in components of WordPress, it doesn't work anymore. It breaks completely. It generates different code. It doesn't allow me to update my own attributes. It tells that my array doesn't exist or whatever, like the object element doesn't exist. It's just so confusing in so many ways. And it seems like they took React and they started building on top of React to change it slightly to make it work the WordPress way. But it's just a mess. So React developers will not be able to just write standard React. And PHP developers will not understand how React works. They will learn the WordPress block React approach, which is wrong, and it's just a mess. Yeah,
because I remember when last year when I was playing with like the create Guten block script and everything, and I had done some React, so I had an idea of how the React syntax looked, and I started getting into it, and I was like, I'm so confused. Like, I'm really confused, and I think that WordPress has always been kind of like a place to jump off, right? Like a lot of developers start with WordPress and then they move into other types of web development later. And I think that's because WordPress it's got great documentation in the codex for the original PHP stuff. It's pretty easy to comprehend, and then you throw this in there, and it's if people with experience are having trouble figuring this out, I can't imagine looks on people's faces that are new to web development. And they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna try WordPress," and they get in here and they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah. I'm baffled by the approach of, yes, we're gonna have reactivity just in the back end. Doesn't make any sense to me. You can have server-side rendering with reactivity. Like Vue.js has server-side rendering with like reactive components, with dynamic blocks and dynamic components. Why they didn't implement these in Gutenberg? What's the point? So now, for example, I have this simple block that I'm building that in order to visualize a download link, you need to do 3 actions. To do that, I need to literally write a React app just for the backend. And then when I print it in the front end, I have to write data attributes or classes in the HTML and write another JavaScript file with jQuery in order to detect on click, add a number, and if all these 3 are clicked, drop down, like show, display, slide down the download buttons, or use vanilla JavaScript, whatever. But I'm doing 3 extra steps to something that I was able to do with one thing in the previous version. And I'm not gaining any benefit other than a fancier animated backend to write my things.
Yes, that's all it does, is it makes the back end look nice and you can move things around easily. But I mean, it's just so much work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the approach with a shortcode would have been great. Like it doesn't make sense. Like not a single, it doesn't exist a single element or single component of WordPress that could be like the Walker nav class, the widgets, the shortcodes or whatever, sidebar elements that you cannot update. And if you update, they break the previous version, even if you have it saved in the database. Like what is this thing? Like
Yeah, that's the way it should work. And Advanced Custom Fields is actually doing something similar. They in the 5.8, which is in beta right now, they're kind of doing it so where like you set up your attributes in advanced custom fields, and then you're pretty much just writing like a PHP template to render it,
Mm-hmm.
which makes a lot more sense. But since it's still Gutenberg, it's still going to be turned into a string and shoved into the content of the post.
Yeah.
So I still wonder with even their approach how you're going to be able to upgrade it. How are you going to handle like this whole deprecated thing that WordPress is thinking is the greatest thing ever?
The greatest. This is so good. Oh, also, I was checking, like, I was doing some research, and I stumbled upon the GitHub repository of Gutenberg, which, by the way, has 1,300 plus issue reports, which is fucked
That are
up.
open?
They're all open,
Wow.
which is messed up. Like, to give credit, probably 300 of those are enhancements or like requests
Sure.
of new features, but still you have 1,300, like 1,300 issue reports on a production ready software,
Yeah.
on a production ready code. If
Running on like a huge majority of the websites in the world.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Great. Great job. And yeah, I was reading there and I found a lot of closed issue, because they closed it, of course, of these people complaining. Like,
Mhm.
it's absurd that I publish a blog and then after a week I decided to change one line or one word and it breaks everything. And a lot of developers answered, of like WordPress or Gutenberg developers answer, oh yes, no, you can create a deprecated, and after the deprecated, you can go through all your blog posts and update the blog post.
Yeah, because I'm sure users are going to be happy about doing that, especially some of these WordPress sites that have just thousands of articles or custom post types that they've added and they're using these blocks. Like,
What
no,
kind of
that's not going to happen.
what kind of fucked up answer is that? Like, I would, like, if I answer like that in my company, I would be fired. Like,
Yeah.
if I tell my boss, like, oh yeah, no, you cannot do that. You need to manually update every single thing that you did because I decided to change stuff. And
Hmm.
like, what? Like, this, Jesus. Like, no, it doesn't make sense. It's like, it's completely mind blowing to me. It's what, why? Like, who decided? Who approved it? Who decided to build this way? To build on top of this? And I'm sure, like, we are late on to the game. Like, we probably, our biggest mistake was not embracing Gutenberg since the beginning
Sure.
when they announced it, and just actually being involved in the development process of Gutenberg and try to push back. But out there are way more like smarter developers than us that are working on these things. Like,
Mhm.
I couldn't build something like Gutenberg because it's really complex.
Yes, it is.
And like, who was in charge of saying, yes, this is the way to do, yeah, we're gonna destroy everything and then we're not gonna allow anyone to update anything.
Yeah, I don't know, and I just the thing that gets me is just the complexity of the development of it. It's like I think that they would have had a better time onboarding people like us who were very critical of this if if it was a lot simpler to write. Like you said, you have to enqueue things differently in PHP,
Yeah.
and you have to do it so you can import it in your JavaScript,
Yeah.
even though these things are available because there's all these other blocks using them.
Yeah.
Um, you have to write this stuff that's getting stringified, and then now you have to like write code to handle every deprecated version you've ever written on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's just like if it was a lot simpler and they were just kind of introducing like React into this, I think it would have gone over a lot better. It would have been a lot less complex,
Mm-hmm.
probably a lot less issues in GitHub.
Oh my god,
Uh,
yes.
and they could, I think if they had done that and the blocks just in the post content was simpler and everybody was happy about it,
Mm-hmm.
when they announced, like we talked about last week with, oh, Gutenberg's going to be in your menus and it's going to be the widgets and you're pretty much going to have a page builder in Gutenberg.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, can you imagine writing a full theme with custom blocks to build like a page builder for your theme with the state it is right now?
Oh yeah, kill me now, please.
Yeah.
Just like, fuck this. No. Like, no. Fuck that. No. It's absurd. And I'm looking at my code, like literally the custom block, and I'm gonna share the source code later the week.
Mhm.
Uh, my custom block does three things. You can write a title, a description, and you can activate a follow on Twitter, a tweet, a custom tweet, and a subscribe to YouTube, HTML buttons. Like these 3 things. Just to do these, it took me like 392 lines of code to build this shit. Just like, and it's like it was confusing all along. It's like first, like also it doesn't make sense how they named those methods. Like one thing that I really like about the widgets and the shortcodes, how when you generate it in PHP, that you have the save methods, the show methods, the visualize method. Like all the methods are named based on the things that they do. You have the edit method that takes care of editing, and then you have the show method that takes care of printing. Here in Gutenberg, you have the edit method and the save method.
That threw me off so bad because I was so confused.
How much time did it take you to understand that the save method is it's actually rendered in the front end?
It took a while. It took way too long. I was really, really confused because I thought save was, oh, are we going to be like sending the attributes that the user selected to the API to save somehow?
Are we going to sanitize before submitting something?
Yes. And then I'm like, why is this like in the default one? Why is it returning HTML?
Exactly.
This makes no sense. What in the world is this actually saving? And it's not. It's just
it's not save.
It's just gonna show this stuff to the screen. That took me way too long to figure out.
Yeah, and it's absurd that also, which is like I think is the major fuck up here, is that your block is gonna break not if you change the edit part. Not if you completely strip away all the code and you write custom extensions, custom sections in the editable part of your administration area. It breaks if you change the save part, if you change the front end. Why? Like, how is that? Like, what the fuck? How is that possible? Like, the save, potentially the save method should only print HTML. But the fact that they physically stringify everything and they store it in the database as a string, as an HTML string wrapped around to stupid HTML tags, and then they re-render dynamically that into a dynamic component when you edit your page, it messed everything, like creates a huge mess of convert, stringify, destringify, JSON, DJSON, enqueue, like fucking what like encode, decode.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And like the error I was getting yesterday where we were saying like your code changed or whatever. And I was looking at it and on the screen it did look different. But when I copied both the previous and the current into like Notepad++, and I looked at it side by side, they were exactly alike. There was no difference.
Oh, yeah.
But in WordPress, it looked different because the way it was breaking the word wrap, because this is a string of HTML, it's not formatted.
Yeah.
It was breaking the word wrap at different points. So it made it look like the code was like a few lines more.
Exactly. Yeah. It cannot interpret like regular HTML symbols. I tried to embed an SVG image, and it was because during the conversion, the encode and decode in JSON stringify was breaking my SVG tags.
Oh, wow.
And it was recognizing like the parameter, like the view box, which has a capital B, so view capital B box. It was recognized as a React, actually like a React attribute, like class name or stuff like that.
Yeah, because I do the camel case stuff.
Exactly, and it was breaking everything. So I cannot even embed an SVG in this fucking thing.
And SVGs are so common now with how small they are compared to images. You've got to support that.
Yeah. And I ended up putting the dash icons, which WordPress has built in the admin area, but not in the front end. So I can have dash icons in the back end for my small components, but in the front end it's completely empty because in the front end is not enqueued the dash icon library. And like there are all these little things that the more you dive into it, the more you see the architectural flaws of this approach. And you cannot imagine how much time it took me to figure out that in the save method, you cannot write any JavaScript because it won't be saved. It won't be rendered in the front end.
Yeah.
I was literally trying to do like one click, show another section, like
Mhm.
the stupidest thing ever. Like the if statement, if this is clicked, show this other HTML section, and it wasn't working.
So that's why you had to enqueue another JavaScript file so that you could do these things on the front end.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a mess.
I was inspecting the source code and I was like, this is just HTML. Where is my JavaScript? Is that stripped away? Like, I'm inside React. Am I losing my mind? It's not how React works anymore. Like, what the fuck?
So really, Gutenberg right now you can only use for like basic content stuff. You can't do anything any more complex than that. Like
No,
what you're
not
trying
at
to do
all.
where you do this and something else appears. So why
Yeah.
are they moving forward to doing like something like menus
Yeah.
where things happen, right? Like hover events, like if you have a secondary menu, like how is any of that going to work?
I don't know. Probably we're not smart enough to understand this. Probably this like the geniuses behind this, they have all figured it out and we can't understand the bigger plan. But yeah, it's and also like the other question related, like that means that the title, that like the default core blocks of Gutenberg that we currently have in WordPress, they
Mhm.
will stay the same forever, or if they change and evolve, those files they will be longer and longer every time
Yep.
because of the deprecated method. So it will be basically non-maintainable after 2 months of development, this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with that. I hope that it drives them to coming up with a better solution for this, especially for handling the deprecated.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if their own developers are struggling to maintain this and to add to it, then it'll kind of force the core into uh, something better.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Anything else? Do you think they will ever do it? Because it took them like 2 years to make this shit. So like, sorry.
It did take them 2 years. Same time they were going through that whole like they were building it in React and then they stopped and they tried switching it to something else because of the whole like React,
Facebook thing,
yeah,
yeah.
the Facebook thing. So I don't know if that hurt it or if it's just that it's so complicated that it even took their own developers that really know the core of WordPress this long to make something that's, really just in the admin panel.
Doesn't, yeah, I'm not sure like how what they're gonna do. Like, I mean, yes, menus and widgets are rendered statically as well, but are
Mhm.
coming from PHP.
Yep.
And it's like is the whole like is the drastic change in the development approach. So far as a WordPress developer, you have your PHP where you manage all your static data and then you write some JavaScript code to manage or like to animate and change that data that you spit out from PHP. Now there's an extra step. First, there's the step of compiling thing, because since you're pretending you're asking to use React, you asked developers to also implement a build system in the theme,
Mhm.
something that was never a thing in WordPress. That's why
Right.
it's so accessible. You don't need any prior knowledge other than simple HTML, CSS, and a little bit of PHP in order to make it work.
Mhm.
Now you're asking to, hey, yes, you need a fully functional React build system in your WordPress theme. Even if you want to just do nothing, you need that. And second, you're going to ask, okay, if you want a custom element in the admin area, you need to write React. But then you also need to write a slightly different PHP to enqueue your React component in the backend. And then if you have some custom stylings for your component, you have to enqueue another styling in the front end. And then if you want your component to be slightly dynamic in any way in your front end, you need to write another JavaScript, but doesn't have to be React. Has to be another type of JavaScript, whatever.
Yep.
So
That's what you gotta do.
four things instead of one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and
It's
then
insane.
your theme or your plugin that you're writing is now 4 times more complex just because of that.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. Like the complexity in the it's so verbose. This source code, and
Hmm.
for like to do anything, to do any small fucking thing. And I'm not an expert in React. Is React like this? Like I'm so used to Vue.js and I love Vue.js because it's so easy. Is
Yeah.
React that complex?
I'm not sure. I mean, I when I mess with React, and the reason why I went with Vue is because I come from an Angular JS background. I'm
Hmm.
used to templates and JavaScript being separate. So the JSX really threw me off in React. How, like in Vue or Angular, you can do a repeat by just putting like a directive on your div or whatever you're wanting to repeat.
Yeah.
Whereas in React, you actually have to write like a function that is like doing a loop and returning HTML within that loop.
Uh,
So that stuff really, to me, I think React is already complicated.
yeah.
I think what they're doing in Gutenberg is another step above that.
Great.
And that's why I've always really not understood why React became so popular, because I feel like compared to Angular or Vue, it's more complicated to write.
Yeah.
I think your code is more concise and you have less lines of code.
Yeah.
But if you go back and try to read a React app, it's a lot harder to read compared to like if you go to a Vue template and you're like, oh, here's some HTML. All right, it's calling these functions. That's in the script right here below that.
Yeah.
Oh, and we've got some scoped CSS that is just for this component that
Yeah.
works in, and I don't remember if they use Virtual DOM or Shadow DOM for Vue,
Hmm.
but it's scoped to that component, and you have it right here. Whereas React took in, they're like, oh no, well now class name, that's now a camel case thing, and like background color is not background hyphen colors, background capital C color.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff just really, I was just so confused by it, which is why I've really stuck with Angular and Vue.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I cannot understand if React has this thing is that it doesn't have default model bindings. If you have an HTML input field and an attribute or an array or a value, can you not bind it by default?
I do remember having some issues with binding objects
What the
in React.
hell? Like why? Like
Yeah.
what's like that it's in your name, React. It means like it should be reactive. Like Vue.js, if you have an attribute or a
Mhm.
variable and you do a model binding, whenever you update the variable, it updates automatically in your HTML or
Mhm.
vice versa. Like, why do I have to manually write on change, set the attributes to update this variable that I declared before to the same value of this input field that I have here? What the fuck? Oh, someone is dying.
Sorry,
That's all right.
I muted my recording. I heard it coming. I was like,
It's
yeah,
all right. No, it's good. It was good timing. Like it
yeah.
matches my frustration. Like, are you sending an ambulance for me?
Yes, it's on its way
Thank you. It's gonna
from the
take.
southeast United States to Vancouver.
It's gonna take just 14 hours. It's fine. Oh my god. Yeah. No, I don't. I'm scared. Like I was really hopeful for Gutenberg. The whole process of not using Gutenberg, so building a new theme
Hmm.
by just printing the content and using Gutenberg for the content is great. It's visually appealing.
Hmm.
It's dynamic. You can move stuff around. It's a good experience writing with that. As far as you don't have really long content, because as soon as you start having really long content, it's just so slow and you have a lot of glitches and issues, which is another stupid fucking thing. You know, did you notice? I don't know if you saw that. Why this is happening? Why Gutenberg is so slow when dealing with too many blocks?
No, I haven't.
Basically, a guy created a script to flash, that create like a flashing animation whenever a block gets updated.
Hmm.
And what he noticed that it doesn't matter in which block you write. Every time you type a letter, all the blocks in your content, they get updated. They get refreshed.
But that's what React is already supposed to handle for you. It's only supposed to update the component that is being changed. So if you
Mm.
can think of each block as its own component, if you start typing in one block, only that one should be updated. So I don't know what they're doing on the back end that's causing them all to update.
You know why? Because it's the backend is outdated. Because the database is outdated. They didn't update the database because your entire page or your entire post has to be converted into just an HTML file,
Oh,
HTML string, and saved in one database column.
mm-hmm. Yep, you're exactly right.
And they're doing these background saving through REST API all the time. Every time you hit a letter, there's on change. Okay, package everything, save everything, and ship it to the database. And every time you type, it saves everything. And it's really fast, and I'm really impressed that it's able to do these without us seeing anything. But as soon as you have 30 different components, or like 1,000, there was a user was having complaints like it starts freaking out, start flickering and going super slow when you pass the 755 words of content.
Wow, that's not many words at all.
Like, what the fuck? Yeah, so this was the script. This guy recorded his screen while doing it. It was a Christmas tree. It was just like flickering every time I was typing a word. It fucking brutal.
And it all comes down. It all comes back to the whole way they're storing it with the strings.
Yeah, it's it's not a good approach if you have the type of database. And I understand they want to keep backward compatibility with the thing, but they're already breaking so many things. So why don't you just refresh the database, like create another column, create another table? The WordPress database is really lean, it has just like 12 tables or something.
Yeah, it's very small.
Create a dedicated table for your Gutenberg blocks, so you can save the proper React way every single block and save the actual, just the values as a stringified array or something.
Yeah.
So who cares about the HTML structure? And then you can dynamically render, server-side render your HTML structure when you print the content in PHP. So don't force the script to actually convert your HTML into dynamic React component. Like what the hell?
Yeah, that would make a lot more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, already. Like what? Like brainstorming. Like who didn't do brainstorming before creating this shit?
Developers who are a lot smarter than us, apparently.
Exactly. Or product managers. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they were just so into like modernizing it. Like, oh, we're gonna do React and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be new and everybody's gonna love it. That they didn't actually really think about the whole process. Like they just were like, hey, just start writing code, just get it working, and we'll hope it works.
And it doesn't.
Yeah. 1,300 issues later.
Yeah. 1,300. Oh my god, that's brutal. That's like shame. Oh, sorry, whatever. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add to this, or
no, I don't think so. I think I just need a beer.
Yeah. Or some cocaine. No,
Yeah.
no, kids, don't do cocaine, kids. No, I'm not suggesting any. Okay, so let's read. We have a bunch of comments from the previous episode, which is fantastic. We're getting actually a lot of views, like an average of 100 listens per day on our podcast feed. And we have a lot of users coming from Spotify, a bunch from like Podcast Republic or iTunes. We're starting to get some comments and reviews, which is really, really nice. I'm really happy about it. So the first guy wrote, Adrian Perez Cruz said, really like the show, always fun to listen to. Hey, thank you so much. It was phenomenal. Milan wrote, he's afraid that since I'm going to be getting the job at Mozilla, I'm not going to do Laravel tutorials anymore. Like, no, I will still do. Like, I don't work with WordPress anymore other than my personal website, but I do WordPress tutorials, so it's fine. Like, I won't interrupt it. And then we got a question from Victor. Says, is it possible to improve Thunderbird?
You can improve anything.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, you're focused on the UX, so
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see what it looks like after seeing like Akira and what you've done with ritual music. I'm sure Thunderbird's gonna be awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, and then right at the end of our beautiful episode where we release a lot of frustration, I guess, we'll see if we're gonna get any comments from a WordPress developer. If you're a WordPress developer involved in the Gutenberg project, please let us know. I would love to interview you. We should do an interview with one of these guys. Okay, so next, like for our homework for next week, is harass as many developers as possible at Gutenberg. Try to hook someone to join for a podcast interview.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to get an insight into why they made some decisions they made, and just understand if they themselves are as frustrated, or if
Yeah.
they're, like, oh no, it's actually not that bad. You're doing it all wrong, or.
Yeah, no, exactly. I would love to be questions. I would love
Yeah.
to get like schooled about this thing. I'd love to understand everything. And we're nice. We're actually nice people. Like we don't bite, and we're just curious. We're really like curious about why this is happening.
Hmm.
For the end, before the end of our beautiful episode, I want to recommend everyone, if you didn't watch it already, to go check the Umbrella Academy on Netflix, which is a fantastic show based on a comic book. Did you watch it?
I haven't seen it, no.
You should. It's really good. Did you watch the Hunting of Hill House?
No, it's on my list to watch
Oh,
though.
come
Yeah, I've
on,
heard really
dude.
good things. I know I'm so far behind.
Yeah, come on, stop. Yeah, stop everything you're doing. Stop playing with Gutenberg. Watch the show. No, it's it's a really great show. It's based on a comic book, The Umbrella Academy, and the comic book was written by the singer of the My Chemical Romance, which is
Oh wow.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really good adaptation. They are pretty honest to the original source material, and also the writer of the comic book was on set a lot of time to be like involved in the process, and
Mhm.
it's great. I'm stoked. I watched it in 3 days. They're just like 9-10 episodes. It's really short, so it's really
Okay.
digestible, and I'm really excited for season 2.
Cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations, like something to read, to listen, to watch for our users?
Not this week, I don't think.
Yeah. Read the Gutenberg documentation.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Which, how fucking outdated is this thing? How cannot believe. Wow.
Yeah. You would think something as major as WordPress would have pretty good documentation. I mean, they do on other things. The codex is great,
Yeah.
but when you get into Gutenberg, it's like, what?
Yeah, literally, there are a lot of sections that or are undocumented, or
Mhm.
you have code snippets that you copy paste that they don't work because they're outdated.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Great onboarding process. And this is production ready. Yay.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're pretty much at the end of this episode. Where can people find you, Chris?
You can find me on YouTube, which I haven't made videos in a while, but I've got plans to make some soon. I'll have more talk on that on our next episode. You can find me on Twitter at ChrisJPerko. You can find me on my website at chrisperko.net, which I'm going to get a new .dev domain as soon as they're not ridiculously expensive.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I won't say what the .dev domain I'm getting because somebody will go buy it and then tell me I can buy it from them for $5,000.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And yeah, here on YouTube.
Nice. And you can find me anywhere, just Alicat, Alessandro Castellani. You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, whatever. In this podcast, you can find all the links in the description below this podcast as usual. And thank you guys so much for listening. Let us know, as usual, give us a review if you hate us. What do you think about Gutenberg? Do you hate it too? Did we get it all wrong? We're just stupid that we don't understand these amazing new technologies. Please let us know because we really want to learn. And until the next one, as usual, happy coding.
Keep on hacking.